Hey you guys, welcome and welcome back. In this video, we're actually going to be discussing an extremely sensitive topic. And I want to preface this conversation by saying to you that if you're easily triggered by situations involving any type of abuse, especially child abuse, you may want to skip this video. However, I feel like this topic is something very important that we need to talk about, especially for those of you who may have children. It's actually crazy, borderline ironic, and a little bit cruel how life tends to play with us and how it unfolds for each and every one of us in different ways. I know that personally, for me, I've been through a lot of situations that I wish I could have avoided. I've had to experience a lot of things that hurt me to my core, whether it was something to do with myself, a family member, or even my own children. No matter how much you try to prepare for things or how much you try to avoid certain outcomes and circumstances in your life, sometimes there's just no way to avoid negative experiences. And unfortunately, the young lady who we're about to speak about has learned this firsthand. And I don't wish her pain on anyone. I don't wish her pain on my worst enemy. But it's something that we need to discuss, especially for those of you who are parents and working to raise your kids in a safe and productive environment. We're going to react to a video where a woman has discovered that her children have been being victimized by their own father. And if you read the title of this video, or if you've seen her video yourself, you'll know that this is the deepest, most utterly disturbing version of abuse that I feel personally can take place. And it's just really sad because it just goes to show how deeply disturbed so many people are in the world. So first, let's watch the video, and please do not pass negative judgment. This is not a video to bash or to mock this young lady. This is a video that I'm making with the intention of bringing awareness to a pretty prevalent, rampant issue that a lot of single parents, especially single moms, face. So if you do want to comment, I welcome your comments. I would ask that you remain as respectful as possible while offering positive feedback or any type of productive experiences that you can provide. And if you want to help the channel, be sure to like this video and subscribe so that we can try to continue to uplift our tribe.
Hi ladies, hi trophies. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. If you hear any noise in the background, that's the new baby. A lot has happened since the last time that I recorded. I thought that when I came back on here that it would be to maybe do like some kind of newborn favorites or meet my new baby or something like that, but unfortunately it's been a little over a month since I had to end up leaving my husband. I honestly don't even really know where to start with this, just because it's just such a hard topic. And I honestly thought that by the time I got on here that I wouldn't have any tears left because I've just cried so much. It's like I built this channel and this whole brand around being this man's wife and trying to teach other women how to attract good men and provider men and all these different things. And I truly held my husband, or saw him, as the bar for what every woman should, the type of man that, or type of husband that every woman should aspire to have. And I didn't realize that the person I married was actually going to be my biggest nightmare. Basically, when I first met my husband, as I've already talked about in another video, I think it was my single mom video, I explained, a little bit about how we met. And I really thought that man was my Prince Charming. I thought that he was my knight in shining armor, and he portrayed himself to be this amazing, upright, righteous Christian man, and I believed him. I think shortly after we got married, and this is something that I haven't talked about, I started noticing like certain things changed with him, and I just started to see a few things that I didn't like. But I honestly thought that some of these were things that I could get past.
Okay, wow. I have to debrief for a second because I'm not reacting to this video for the first time. I saw the video maybe a few days after it was posted and I was watching it on my phone. Now, I don't know if you can see the part where she put a little caption there on the screen, but she was basically explaining how she had to leave her husband. And she said that there were a few things that upset her, but that she felt like she could get past. And then this pops up on the screen, which I did not see when I first watched this video. And this video, because I don't like to bring people even further down than where they are, it's just so hard to watch. And throughout my video, I'm going to point out some things to you guys that I feel would be productive for us all to understand when it comes to our experiences in life and when it comes to the lessons that we ultimately will have to learn either way. This right here, what she put as the caption on the screen, that's something that you walk away from. You just do. And this is not me bashing her or attempting to point out the obvious of what she now knows, but I'm just letting you guys know. And that's real. Sometimes I feel that a lot of the traumatic situations that we experience over and over repetitively, whether it's on an individual level or on a collective level, could possibly be avoided or at the least minimized if we all were to be more honest and forthcoming when it comes to sharing our true and authentic, genuine experiences. A lot of times people try to portray a certain image and they want that image to be a representation of who they are, but it's not really authentic or true to the actual situation that they're experiencing in the time. And whatever creation of an image that they make, whether it's within their reality and how they see things or how they portray themselves outwardly to the public, sometimes that created image or that created reality is better than the truth. And sometimes that can be beneficial because you never know how you can expand in a situation. You never know how you can evolve in a situation if you choose to not give up. But what she just put on the screen right here, this is a problem. And if you go back and look at her other video where she explained how they met, as she mentioned, I think it was the video about her being a single mom, then you will see how fast she entered into this relationship. And it was like the cosmos were screaming at her to run.
It was like sad to even say like I could get past some of these things. I don't even know where to start. 6 weeks ago, I was changing my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, and I noticed that when I changed her, she was red and very sensitive, and immediately my first thought was, did someone touch her? Oh God. Gosh. So I asked her, I said, baby, did somebody touch you? And she ended up saying it was Daddy. I felt like my world ended on that day. My husband wasn't home at the time when she told me, but I knew he would be coming home soon, so all I could do was just say, don't tell him that you told me. And I just instantly started trying to think of how I could get my kids out of the house, because I knew if I confronted him or asked him about it, that he would just lie, and that he would probably just continue to keep doing stuff to her, but just become more covert or more sneaky or whatever. As soon as my husband got home, he was actually picking up the boys from school, my 2 older boys from school. As soon as he got home, I told him that I was going to go Halloween shopping with my sister, because I just needed an excuse to get out of the house with all the kids. And I knew if I said something like, oh, I'm going to the grocery store, that it would be suspicious. Like, why am I bringing all the kids and like packing things, like things that we would need and things like that. So going Halloween shopping was the best thing I could think of to just hurry up and get the kids out of the house. I'm sorry, I had to get myself together. So when I got to the hospital, they basically told me that we had to go to another hospital because they didn't do physical exams, like that kind of physical exam there. So a police officer escorted the kids and I to another hospital where they were able to evaluate my daughters. It ended up coming out that he had actually been touching both of my daughters, who are only 2 and 4 years old. Um, it still feels like a dream. Like when this first happened, I just kept waking up every day and just hoping that this was a dream, because it's literally my worst nightmare. It's my worst nightmare. I myself am a product of RAPE. That's how I came to be, and was also, abused as a child by a neighbor's husband. And I specifically prayed to God that my children would never, ever, ever have to go through this. And I'm just not quite sure how this happened, why this happened.
I do want to point out as well that she's expressing her experience with assault. She's expressing her origin story pretty much. And a lot of things that people don't really dig deeply into or read deeply into is why these cycles repeat themselves. And that's something that I've had to do a lot of observation and research and trial and error on in my own life. Even with all of the observations that I've made in my own life, there's still a lot of things that I still don't understand when it comes to cycles repeating, generational cycles, generational curses that people like to call it. It's very confusing at times. But when I hear her talk about how she was a product of RAPE and that it also happened to her, not only that she derived from it and originated from it, but that it also happened to her, it means that it happened to her mother because that's how she's here. And then it happened to her. And now it's happening to her daughter. And one thing that I've noticed throughout my own cyclic behavior and throughout generational cycles that I see within my family or the family of my children, my counterpart that I had children with, is that sometimes we push so hard or fight so hard to break away from those cycles. And the action that we take to fight and get away is sometimes the main action that provokes the situation to happen or it provokes the situation to continue. And it's a very innocent thought process. It's a thought process that's natural to all of us. It's a thought process of survival. It's a thought process of wanting better and wanting to escape. But at the same time, sometimes you have to recognize that those driving factors that create the thought process, which formulates the choices that are made in order to escape from said situation, are the exact factors that drive you directly into the situation's reoccurrence. And that's something that would be valuable for all of us to understand. I mean, you guys let me know if you really look back on your life and your situations and the things that repetitively happen, not only to you, but maybe to your mother or your father or to your siblings or even to your children. If you have children who are old enough to see, have you guys recognized that the desire to avoid those negative situations prompts certain action? And if you can take an objective look at yourself and you do recognize that the desire to escape prompted certain actions within you, do you see a pattern of possibly fear or anxiety or intimidation from that situation that possibly could have driven you to making certain decisions that brought the situation more prevalently in your life? Because I know for me personally, there are definitely situations like that that have happened to where I was trying to avoid something or I was trying to prevent something from happening, but I actually provoked it to happen and brought it into my life. Because instead of making a confident choice or making a choice from a core place of faith and positivity and optimism, I was actually deceived within myself and making a choice from a place of pessimism and negativity and fear. I think that's what could have happened. Because if you guys go back and watch her other videos and watch some of her other content, you'll see that she was a person who desperately, in my opinion, because this is my opinion and I don't want to put my opinion on anyone else, but she came off to me as someone who was desperately desperately in need and desiring that companionship and wanting to have a partner and wanting to be in a relationship, wanting to be married, a desire where she didn't want to be a single mother. And sometimes I don't think we realize the fact that we want something so bad that we may compromise rational judgment and rational decision making when it comes to achieving that goal or getting what it is that we want. Because if we've only been married for a month and you're forcing yourself on me, that's a problem. Because why did we get married?
I just don't know how he was able to get away with it and so sneaky. Because of my own trauma, I watch my kids like a hawk. Like, I don't like them sitting on people's laps. None of that. And he knows how much I cannot stand men like him. And to think like I couldn't even go to sleep in my own house and know that my children are safe.
And then she said, he knows. Sound like J. Cole, child. If you are a person who's entering into a connection or a relationship with another person, you do not want to necessarily divulge every single facet of your psyche to that person. And I know that that might sound divisive. At least for me, this is how I feel. And I feel like every relationship is different and it would depend on your partner, because some people have a very pure and genuine connection where you can tell them all of your secrets and you can express such a pure level of honesty with your partner. And that's the type of relationship that I strive to have. I want to be able to tell my partner anything and not be judged and then not have what I say be weaponized against me in the future. However, I'm telling you, she said she was talking about the story of them getting together, and it was a very short period of time in which she invested time into figuring out who this man was. Now, at the same time, I think there needs to be a deeper conversation about these types of men. But when it comes down to her saying that he knows about her and he knows what she's been through, he also knew how much this would hurt her. And because of whatever reason that drove him to do this to his own children, it's basically as if his choices were driving the stake even deeper into her heart. It's just very unfortunate.
Just by me going to sleep, my children were left unprotected. So I don't know what the future of this channel is going to be. I don't know if we're going to change the name or what. Yeah.
That's very interesting, y'all. And I know everybody's going to be all over this. Everybody's making 1,000 reactions to what she's saying and all this other type of stuff. But that's very interesting what she said. Like, she doesn't know the future of this channel and if she's going to change the name. The name of the channel, I guess, is The New Trophy Wife, or her name is Isis. And she has all of these videos about basically, I guess, becoming a trophy wife, child. I didn't watch a lot of her videos, but Become the Ultimate Woman. Pretty much it looks like feminine self-help. A lot of the things that we as women are doing right now that I feel like has its flaws, but it comes from, I feel like it stems from a place of positivity, because ultimately women have always been kind of in this search of more equality, and women have been, on this journey of finding value within ourselves and being valued and all these other aspects of our lives. And it just looks like she's doing that. And there's a few things that I want to point out, you guys. There's a few things that I would like for us to discuss when it comes to her point of views and her perspective and the way she's created media online. Number one, because I have children, as a lot of you guys may know, I have children, and I was very young when I had my kids. I was pregnant at 17, had my first son at 18, pregnant again at 18, and had my second son at 19. And then I had my third child around 25. And what I have experienced is both sides of the spectrum. The only reason why my youngest son is here is because my children were subjected to my relationship. And it's something that I won't necessarily say I regret, because at the end of the day, what's the point of regretting your actions if you did them? I don't regret any of my actions. Sometimes I wish I would have made a better choice, but I don't necessarily regret any of my actions. However, my youngest son is only here because my older two sons had to endure their home somewhat being invaded upon by a man that I was choosing to be in a relationship with. And when you have children, you have to be extremely cognizant and aware and cautious of creating those dynamics in the home with your children, because there's a lot of talk lately. Like, I had a whole discussion in the comment section of Abba and Preach's video that was talking about this guy in the manosphere who was basically dogging single mothers. And a lot of the conversation about single moms is not really about all single moms. It's really about Black single moms. So let's not fake the funk. But I had a conversation with someone who was in the comments, and it appeared to be a young man, because I had made a comment about how this guy was coming off as very insecure, basically portraying himself as this 6 foot whatever Black man who makes a certain figure. And it showed his insecurity. Like, when the camera was rolling and his tone and his delivery of what he was saying came out, it showed how insecure he actually is. And that's the comment that I made. And then there was a young man who replied to my comment because I was speaking about how someone's values or their value comes from like how they treat people and, you know, the character that they have and the value that they create in their life for themselves and other people. And they asked me, how do you create value? And I gave a few examples of how I create value. And I asked them, like, how do you create value? Why did you feel the need to ask that question? And it wasn't so much of like a combative conversation. I think they were curious and I was curious, and they found my comment and they decided to comment back. So I gave the recommendations of what I see as like creating value, being there for people, treating people right, being a good person, doing your best to help your community, advocating for something, like creating meaning basically in your life. And they told me, because I asked, why did they ask that question? And they were like, well, I wasn't really brought up in a place where we discussed values. And it was very interesting to me. I mean, as a parent and as a child, you never really know how your experience differs from other people's experience. You never really know what someone else is going through. You kind of see life through the lens of your own personal experiences and your own personal choices. And that can be starkly different from the next person who may be standing right next to you. And in this young lady's situation, I feel like, first of all, as a single parent, I learned honestly that I shouldn't necessarily allow a person who I'm dating or interested in into my children's space, because not only does it reduce their safety factor, but it also could potentially disrupt their confidence or disrupt their emotional stability or security. And sometimes at the end of the day, a lot of people, I don't really care if you have kids or not and you want to speak on the topic. I don't really care if, you're old or young. I don't care who you are as an individual. I feel like everyone is entitled to their opinion. But one thing that a lot of us don't understand is how crazy life can be. And the fact that no matter how much hindsight is 2020, sometimes your vision in the moment can be skewed. That's why it's beneficial, especially if you are raising kids, to do self-development work on yourself, to really figure out kind of what I was talking about earlier when I said the cyclic behaviors. It's really beneficial for you to figure out those cyclic behaviors, those behaviors that perpetuate the generational traumas and the generational curses and the things that continuously repeat in the lives of you and those who came before you, because that will equip you with the information and the knowledge that you need to help prevent it from happening to the people who are coming after you. And while people may say that she should have made a better choice, or people may say that she was foolish for her actions, which in hindsight is true, and there were a lot of red flags that you guys can take a look at. I think it was this video right here where she was talking about single mom to spoiled housewife in less than a year or something like that.
But I definitely understand it being hard, because I stayed in situations much longer than I had to because I had children in those situations. So I understand the struggle of that, definitely. But there's that saying, when you get sick and tired, of being sick and tired, that's when you'll make a change. And that's very true. So it's just all about whenever you have the courage to do that. Sorry if my house is noisy in the background. I don't know how much you all can hear, but there's so many of us that it's just like that. So if you hear stuff in the background, just act like you don't.
I showed my baby sister video about dating. If you guys can hear my daughter, she's upstairs with my husband being cranky. So I just don't know how he was able to get away with it and so sneaky, because with my own trauma, I watch my kids like a hawk.
I definitely feel that sometimes the work that needs to be done can only be identified by the presence of an eye-opening experience. And that's just the basis of what she's dealing with right now. And if you think about this on a deeper level, on a more core soul level, a lot of us probably can look back on experiences that now we know better because we went through it. And that's the only way that we could have known better, is to experience it and go through it. I know there's probably a lot of situations that a lot of us can look back on where we had to make repeated corrections and repeated mistakes to go through something more than once to see that it wasn't the right choice. And I can almost bet and guarantee that if everyone's laundry, everyone's dirty laundry, and everyone's past indiscretions were aired out, there would be a lot of things that we individually would not be proud of and that we would not necessarily want to share with the world. And I just feel like it's sad because another aspect of this is her channel completely as a whole. At the end of the video, she talked about how she doesn't know what the future of the channel holds, and that if she might have to change the name of the channel, and all of these things are going to have to be thought about and, dealt with. But it kind of points to a point that I make in a lot of my videos, and you can look back and see my videos, which is the point of us listening to people, why we listen to certain people, why we take advice from certain people, who we take advice from, and what criteria determines the level of acceptability or the level of believability when we take advice from these people. What is the criteria for a person who is acceptable to receive guidance from? And we're not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. She's a very beautiful woman. She has a lot of amazing physical qualities that are very attractive to people. And she's created this niche. Well, not created, but she's cultivated her space in this niche, because I know everybody's talking about Shira and stuff like that. And she even talks about it in this video right here, where she's talking about gender wars, Shira 7, Kevin Samuels, just pearly things. So obviously it's like manosphere topics and, womanosphere. I don't know. What is the other term for it when women do the opposite of manosphere? I don't know. But it's so exhausting and it's so draining, and it leads back to a point that I've made several times about who we take advice from, why we take advice from them, and what qualifies them to give this type of advice. Because I don't know if you guys heard about it, but there was recently a story where a young man harmed himself to the point of deletion because some bot on AI told him to or encouraged him to. Now, this is a New York Times article. It says, "Can AI be blamed for a teen's deletion?" The mother of a 14-year-old Florida boy says he became obsessed with a chatbot on character AI before his passing. And this is that young man. And it's so sad, to see all of these things happen. But why? Why do these things happen? Who creates the rules when it comes to who we take advice from? Who creates the criteria when it comes to what's acceptable and presentable and believable when it comes to people we take advice from? Now, I'm not trying to rub salt in this woman's wounds, not one bit, but something that is a productive conversation piece is if you look at the things that she's saying and the ways that she's talking, which go back to my point of who's acceptable to take advice from, you'll see that she has this curated channel, and all of her videos, while there aren't very many of them, she had a decent amount of following. She understood what she was doing. She understood the assignment, and she came to carry out the assignment at which she felt like she had to carry out. And these are all aspects that a lot of content creators aspire to. They want to have a certain aesthetic when it comes to the topics that they talk about and the way that they set up their creations. What's very ironic, though, and what can oftentimes be jarring to you as an individual or to anyone who's in this position, is the fact that life has a cruel and sometimes blatantly excessive way of humbling us. Not only will it teach us lessons, but it can also humble us and put us in a position to where we have to and are forced to handle the deep-seated, buried, extremely deeply rooted issues that we are choosing not to face. It's happening in my life right now. It's happening in so many of our lives when it comes to the state of affairs that we're in collectively. And unfortunately, some of the language that I feel like is being used when it comes down to topics that people are talking about, ideas and rhetoric that people are spreading, and influence that ultimately these people have over a certain group of people is being cleaned up. And this is not like a religious thing, and it's not something that I want to be perceived as, penance for some type of crime or wrongdoing. It's just, as a whole, we're being made to fix what's broken. And just because someone portrays a certain image of a situation doesn't mean that image or the reality being portrayed is a true representation of reality. And what it boils down to is that not only should we give a chance to some of the people who may not be as conventionally acceptable when it comes to giving advice, but we should also lean more heavily on our own judgment. And if that judgment is questionable or it is confusing on a personal level, then that's a strong indicator and a strong sign that there's work to be done so that that judgment and access point to judgment of situations around you can be improved. The last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to this whole situation is, when are we, especially as women on women, the connection between us women, when are we going to get to a point where we start holding the wrongdoers, the true wrongdoers of situations, accountable? Because a lot of people are at that point where they understand that she is not the one who should be bashed here. A lot of us understand that not only was her child victimized, but she was also victimized as well by a predator. And I was just speaking about this when it comes to the relationship between content creation, content creators, and the consumers of content creation, and how we kind of have adopted this idea that it's okay to be bad and do bad things or be negative or spew negativity out towards people, and they just take it. We've all kind of become accustomed to that because of the internet and because of things online, but it perpetuates this negative belief system and this negative behavioral trait within all of us to punish the victim and not the perpetrator. And I don't think that that's right. And while people may make decisions that you or I or anyone else viewing the situation from the outside looking in would consider counterproductive or counterintuitive, like I said earlier, we've all been there. I pray and I hope and I'm positively optimistic that at some point we will all decide to start standing up for not only ourselves, but for other people who've been in negative situations without bringing them down due to their choices. Because I believe individually and personally that as soon as you think you're better than another person, or as soon as you think you're more in a situation, or as soon as you feel this level of security that is a bit naive, but also admirable, and you put your perspective or your opinion over another person's perspective or opinion, or you put your experience over another person's perspective or experience, life has a crazy way of humbling you. I only watched like little clips of videos, like little short clips of her communicating and speaking, and I'm not sure of everything that she said, so I'm not sitting here like trying to vouch for her as an individual because I don't know her. But I feel like there's a lot of humility that can be recognized. There's a lot of potential for humility within all of us to be recognized when it comes down to situations that we all go through and the judgment that the mob and the internet and the outside people have over those experiences and situations. Basically, you never want to just act as if you're safe from any type of humbling experience, because the person who's extremely wealthy and rich and they have all of these material items can go bankrupt. The tides of a situation can turn at the drop of a dime. And while a lot of people may be judging this woman for her choices, which honestly were a little bit questionable in my opinion, you never know when you could be in the similar situation and your choices would be judged in the same way. You never know where that learning curve is in your life. So I just wish that people would understand that not only is this an issue with discernment and with self-esteem on an individual standpoint on her part, but it's also an issue with complacency and the allowing and accepting of predatory behavior to the most vital members of our society, which is children. It happens all the time. It happens more than what you think. And the 10% of cases that you hear every year of something heinous or horrendous happening to a child does not compare to the 90% that you don't. And what I feel like would be more beneficial, instead of coming at her for doing her best to pivot and learn from her situation and her mistake, maybe the mob could mobilize to make some actual change so that predators like her estranged partner don't feel comfortable targeting women or men who are in this position of parenting so that they can have more access to the vulnerability of those children. And I don't know what else to say because I could talk about this all night, but this is the point. It's not about women. It's not about men. There are women who are predators. There are men who are predators. What the issue is that I have with this situation is not with her, because she's learning her lessons. And the way that she spoke and the way that she handled herself, God help me, because I might have ended up in jail. And I don't know if she'll ever see this video. I don't know if she'll ever watch my content, but girl, I'm proud of you for believing your kids. I'm proud of you for being vulnerable about this. And I wish nothing but happiness and joy and healing over you and your children's lives. And I know that for a fact it's going to happen, because literally your confidence to express yourself and tell the truth of your situation, even in the midst of the image that you created, is admirable. And I am proud of you. And to anyone else, because y'all can see I'm kind of getting emotional, I don't like to see children being victimized. But to any of you who have been in this situation or who have experienced abuse like this yourself, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for not giving up on yourself. I'm proud of you for moving through that pain to find some level of prosperity. And I'm proud of you for choosing a better life, a life that's not centered around your pain or your victimhood, but a life that's centered around your strength and resilience. So I hope you guys were able to gain something positive from this conversation. Thank you all so much for being here. Be sure to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think. As always, be sure to like and subscribe so that we can continue to uplift the tribe. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.